Don't shoot. It's just YouTube coming through. This is our legendary Leopard, nicknamed Rhino. He's been in hell for half a year now. Come on, I'll show you.
This Leopard 2 is now hiding among the ruins of Pokrovsk, a Ukrainian city under siege by the Russian army. Here's footage of its last combat sortie.
Разулся на мине вот здесь. И поехал, но недалеко.
Yep, that's an Abrams, also stuck in hell. Oh god. And that's only one side. Leopard and Abrams met in hell like two distant relatives at a family dinner. Luckily, they're fighting on the same side. But that won't stop us from comparing them because Leopard and Abrams share the same enemy. Drones, circling high above, waiting patiently for someone to roll out onto position.
The problem is there are really a lot of them.
So how do these tanks handle the brutal conditions of the front? How many hits can their armor take? You're about to find out. And later, you'll learn about the effectiveness of their guns. Because while Leopard and Abrams both carry the same cannon, the way they fire isn't exactly identical. So, defense. The first Abrams tanks arrived at the front in the middle of winter. Ukrainians chose a hooligan tactic, fast raids. The tank dashes toward Russian positions, fires, then pulls back. During combat runs, the Abrams stays in constant motion, stopping only to fire. This hit-and-run style gives Ukrainian infantry powerful fire support and halts Russian assault groups. Still, in one of these raids, a Ukrainian Abrams took a direct hit from an anti-tank guided missile. But it came out with no major damage. The tank drove off under its own power. The American beast survived thanks to its extra armor.
Here on the hull are ARAT reactive armor tiles. That's standard American protection.
Just a reminder, ARAT, active reactive armor tiles, are add-on explosive reactive armor blocks. Inside each block is a thin layer of explosive. When a shell or rocket hits, the block detonates. The result?
The block blows apart, but the shaped charge jet scatters.
After a block has done its job, it's replaced with a new one. So don't let footage of shredded tiles upset you. What it really means is the tank itself survived untouched. But what if a shaped charge round punches into the turret? That's a problem. See that hole? That's the aftermath of a shaped charge jet. But if you peek inside, the equipment's intact. No through penetration, no bloodstains, meaning the crew lived. Even though Ukrainian Abrams don't have the secret depleted uranium armor, the turret of an American still manages to soak up the hit. But only days after the Abrams first rolled into combat in this war, Ukraine lost its first of the 31 supplied by the US. The first FPV drone strike hit the engine, immobilizing the tank. The second slammed into the rear of the turret, igniting the ammo stored in the bustle rack. Luckily, the crew got out alive. So how does it happen that Abrams armor shrugs off a guided anti-tank missile, but falls victim to a cheap, jury-rigged Chinese FPV? Before you see the answer, do us a favor. Hit like on this video so YouTube knows it's worth spreading. Thanks. Here's the deal. FPV drones usually carry a standard anti-tank shaped charge grenade, capable of penetrating up to 450 millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor. But the Abrams frontal hull and turret armor are far thicker, up to 800 to 900 millimeters equivalent. Very little chance of breaking through there. Keep in mind that's equivalent thickness. The actual steel is thinner because the armor is composite, with layered fillers, and it reacts differently to kinetic penetrators versus shaped charges. But Abrams is a frontal brawler. Its armor is built for head-on duels, from the sides, the rear, and especially from above. It's far more vulnerable. That's why FPVs always try to slip in like a prizefighter, duck past the guard, and land an uppercut under the chin. Quick, precise, devastating. So, what can be done?
Look, on the turret and upper hole we welded on contact 1. That's not standard protection. We came up with it ourselves, and the Americans laugh at it. We also added a cage, mangal.
The Contact 1 explosive reactive armor works the same way as ARAT. It's effective against shaped charges rated up to about 500 millimeters of steel. And the so-called mangal, an improvised anti-drone grill of rebar or mesh mounted above the turret, is designed to wreck or prematurely detonate a kamikaze drone's warhead before it reaches the main armor. But does it actually work? Some analysts argue all this DIY armor is pointless. It makes the tank heavier, less maneuverable, and shortens the life of its components. But those experts aren't the ones driving into combat every day. Here's what Ukrainian tankers say.
Right now, I'm alive only because of this protection. We take lots of hits, sometimes 10 to 15 in a single sortie.
So who do you trust more, experts or the guys inside the tanks? You decide. And check this out. According to Russians, this Abrams you've already seen took 12 hits, and this one, in just 2 minutes of battle, took up to 6 direct FPV strikes. 2 more drones missed, and 1 got stuck in the cage. In both cases, the crews waited for a safe moment and got out. So, Abrams may not always survive, but it does its primary job, saving the crew. But what about the German Leopard 2? Let's look at the most common version in Ukraine, the Leopard 2A4. Like most modern tanks, the Leopard 2A4 uses multi-layer composite armor with tungsten and titanium inserts between steel plates. The exact specs are classified, but here's what matters. See the familiar sight? Yep, contact 1 again. Meaning that even the secret German armor can't go out against FPVs without add-ons. You'll also notice contact 1 blocks hanging on the sides, because unlike the Abrams with its ARAT package, the Leo has no built-in modular system. And without a Mongol? Forget it. Just look at this Leo's fancy cloak of cages. Let's hear from his commander. Happy with the protection, man?
Well, I wouldn't say the armor's thick, but it works. For example, on this sortie we took 5 FPVs.
But sometimes 1 hit is all it takes. Russian FPV operators are getting better and better at striking weak spots.
Here the FPV slipped between the nets and nailed the transmission. But this Leopard has 9 lives, like a cat. Oh, hear that? FPV buzzing right over us.
We'll leave him there. It's getting dicey. In a moment, you'll see what happened to his Leo with the damaged transmission. But here's the early verdict on protection. Leopard 2 A4s without factory upgrade kits are more vulnerable on the sides. That's why later versions, A5 and A6, got additional composite side armor modules that massively improved protection against both shaped charges and kinetic penetrators. Ukraine does have some A6s and a handful of Swedish STRV 122As, essentially Leopard 2 A5s with unique upgrades. We've got a whole video on that tank on our channel, but all these newer models are in tiny numbers, so we're leaving them out of this Abrams versus Leopard comparison. For the 2 A4s, Ukrainian crews shore up the weak spots with contact 1, so when it comes to all-round protection, Abrams has a slight edge, because ARAT is an integrated system, not field improvisation. So, for now, Abrams 1, Leopard 0. But what happened to our guy after that drone strike? Look, when the FPV nailed the transmission, the Ukrainian Leopard stalled and froze in place. Damn.
Now listen, you'll hear it. Hear that? A Russian FPV circling, waiting for us to climb out.
So, what happened next?
Over the radio, they yelled at us to start up with the emergency gearbox.
Emergency gearbox?
Yeah, it runs without brains, without electronics, just like a standard manual gearbox. So we fired it up and drove out.
That's right, switching to manual saved the crew and the tank. A very handy trick when your automatic transmission gets wrecked. Could Abrams pull the same stunt? Nope. The Abrams Allison X 1100 transmission has no manual override. It's a fully automatic hydromechanical system where gear changes happen by themselves, depending on speed and load. But that's not laziness or poor design. It's an American design philosophy. The US wanted any soldier after just a crash course to hop into an Abrams and drive. Sit down, hit the gas, go. Simplicity is king when seconds decide survival. On top of that, the automatic protects the drivetrain from dumb driver mistakes, lowering the risk of breakdown during a march or in combat. Strong arguments, no doubt, but in this specific fight, the Leopard's manual fallback kept its crew alive. That's priceless. Score tied, 1-1. So, tell me, what would you pick? The ease of a full auto or the survivability of a manual override? Drop your answer in the comments. And now, let's move on to the real deal, the guns. Because a tank can't just be a target, it has to shoot back. Abrams M1A1 and Leopard 2A4 are formally armed with the same gun, the Rheinmetall RH120L/44. In the US though, it goes by the name M256, since it was built under license. But here's where the Americans went their own way. They doubled down on unique ammo. The standout is the M829 round, with a depleted uranium penetrator. Because of uranium's insane density, the M829 crushes Soviet armor like a steel hammer smashing a clay night pot. That's why this shell became a legend. It turned the Abrams into the undisputed tank duel champion, smashing Iraqi armor in Operation Desert Storm, 1991, and again in Iraq, 2003. Thanks to the M829 family, Abrams earned its reputation as the tank that doesn't lose duels. So what's Leo shooting? The Leopard 2A4 uses the DM13 and DM23 APF SDS rounds with tungsten cores. Cool? Sure, but tungsten can't match uranium. penetration is about 25 to 30% lower. So in a head-to-head, the American M829 takes the crown. Now, about DU rounds and health debates, yeah, they spark controversy. But really, does it matter how many milligrams of uranium dust Russian tank crews inhale after getting shredded by an M829? I think we both know the answer. Point goes to the American, 2-1 Abrams. But here's the twist. This war isn't about tank duels. You've seen it throughout this video. Tanks mostly fight infantry hiding in buildings and tree lines. And with FPVs and ATGM operators swarming, tanks are forced to stay on the move. Both Abrams and Leopard have excellent fire control systems. No need to bury you in technical manuals. Let's just watch them in action. And here's the kicker. The baseline Abrams M1A1 lags in gun stabilization. That's why it often has to stop before firing. You saw it earlier, frame by frame. Meanwhile, the Leopard 2 A4's FCS is slightly more advanced, calculating faster for accurate fire on the move. Watch how Ukrainians put that to work. That's a solid edge. Point to the German Cat, 2-2. But a tie? Boring. Let's crank this duel up. The winner should be decided by comparing engines. Abrams' gas turbine versus Leopard's diesel. Totally different philosophies, each with pros and cons. And here's the fresh news. Just days ago, 49 Abrams arrived from Australia. They'll likely become Ukraine's main Abrams fleet, since only a handful of the original American batch are still in action. And get this, the Aussies tweaked the turbines to run on diesel, not aviation kerosene. A huge logistical relief, since most of Ukraine's armored fleet guzzles diesel. How they'll perform under fire? We'll soon find out. For now, we'll leave this duel unresolved, but you won't have to wait long. Subscribe, and you'll see first-hand reactions from Ukrainian tankers testing the Aussie Abrams in combat. Got questions for those crews? Drop them in the comments. We'll make sure they reach the front. Thanks for sticking with us.